US President Donald Trump has contacted his first African leader, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Trump has spoken to him on the phone, inviting the Egyptian leader to Washington. Now, according to White House officials, arrangements are still in the planning phase. The phone conversation reportedly focused on Israel and Palestine and the fight against terrorism. Trump has praised Egypt's efforts in battling extremism. The American president has reportedly pledged his full support to Egypt in that fight. For his part, President Sisi has reportedly expressed hopes that bilateral ties between Egypt and the United States will strengthen under Trump's administration. Well, let's dig a little deeper into this phone call between Trump and the president of Egypt. First, let's get you more from Cairo. We're joined now by CGTN's Abdel al-Mahrouki. Abdel, what is the significance of President Donald Trump inviting President el-Sisi to Washington, and is the Egyptian leader likely to accept the invitation?
Well, definitely President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will accept, and as you said, according to the Egyptian presidential office, the preparations for the visit are already on the way. So they have started the coordination for the visit. They will set the timing and the topics to be discussed later on in the coming days, and then they will announce a final date or an official date for the visit. As for the significance, it first confirms what many have been speculating and what Egypt have also been wishing for, that under the Trump administration, the bilateral relations between both the states and Egypt would recover. It has been harshly damaged after the 2013 ousting of Islamist President Mohamed Morsi that brought President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, then defense minister, to power. The relations with the U.S. administration under Barack Obama has been tensed, with the U.S. freezing its annual military aid to Egypt for some time, and trying to put pressure on the internal politics, as Egyptians have been, the Egyptian experts have been viewing it. So this confirms that Trump is taking a different approach than Obama, particularly toward Egypt, and that terrorism is the main focus for the cooperation, particularly to help Egypt deal with what it has with militant insurgency in the Sinai.
Well, as you say there, Abdel, of course, terrorism the main focus. But of course, many in Africa are still trying to get a clearer picture of President Trump's stance on the continent. And as you've mentioned, terrorism is one priority, but it seems like the Israel-Palestine conflict might be another.
Well, definitely the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a cornerstone in the regional crisis in the Middle East. Many have been focusing on what's going on in Libya, Syria, Yemen, Iraq and other countries. But Egypt has been trying to push, along with Arab countries lately, that the cornerstone for all these crises, the main conflict that, if resolved, would definitely tune down the violence in the Middle East, is the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. To have a two-state solution, to give Palestinians their own lands with complete sovereignty, and finally approach or have the dream that millions have been looking forward to in decades. So it is a cornerstone in that, but at the same time, there hasn't been any confirmation. The Egyptian presidential statement did not mention any talks about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict during the telephone call, but definitely Egypt will be putting that as a priority in the agenda when the two leaders meet.
Well, thank you so much, Abdel al-Mahrouki, for that. Joining us there, of course, from Cairo. We'll bring you more now on those bilateral relations between Egypt and the U.S. Of course, President Trump is seeming to mend what were often strained relations between the U.S. and Egypt under his predecessor. Here's more from CGTN's Clementine Logan.
Barack Obama chose Egypt to deliver his 2009 key address on U.S. relations with the Islamic world. However, in 2013, relations between the longtime allies became strained. That followed the overthrow of Egypt's first elected president, Mohamed Morsi. After a military takeover, new President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's government declared Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization and imprisoned scores of its supporters. That prompted the US to suspend vital military aid to Egypt. Relations hit a low in 2014 when President Sisi declined an invitation to Washington to attend the US-Africa Leaders Summit. The following year, the Obama administration resumed military aid, arguing that its alliance with Egypt was crucial in the fight against ISIL. But last year's G20 meeting in China once again highlighted the leaders' frosty relationship. Video footage emerged of an apparent snub by Obama as Sisi attempted to shake his hand. Meanwhile, ties between China and Egypt have strengthened, with both leaders visiting each other's countries in 2016. Sisi's government, like Trump's, has also cultivated ties with Russia. And Trump has pledged that his administration will be a loyal friend, not simply an ally to Egypt. Clementine Logan, CGTN.
Well, let's get to an analysis now on Egypt-US ties. I'm joined live in our Nairobi studios by international relations expert, Professor Macharia Monene. Professor, always good to have you with us. But of course, now we are looking at what could be, I mean, as far as how you analyze all of this, Donald Trump inviting the president of Egypt to the United States. Is this a positive shift in US-Egypt ties?
It is a very positive shift. It shows that President Trump, as he said, he wants to shift things. And one of the first things is to shift the debate on the Middle East. There was a time when Egypt and Israel were very close. And Egypt is led by a strong man, Sisi. Israel is led by a strong man, Benjamin Netanyahu. And now Trump would like to be seen as a strong man. So you have a triumvirate of strong men trying to deal with the crisis in the Middle East, this perpetual crisis. And they may be thinking that they might find a way out. That is their liking. So it's a very positive thing for the relations between Egypt and the United States, or the United States and Egypt. Indeed. That Sisi was among the second person after Netanyahu to be called and say, can we talk? So there's something, an element of realism.
But Professor, as you say, this is a triumvirate of strong men. But of course, in the absence of strong ties with America, Egypt looked to other people, another strong man for friends, the countries like Russia, countries like China. Is that likely to change now?
No, because Sisi knows what Egypt's interests are. So there is likely to be some balancing up. You don't antagonize the United States. That does not mean that you antagonize China or the Russians, because they all have interest in Egypt and they have invested in Egypt. China has invested heavily in Egypt with the infrastructure and the One Belt One Roads thing. So they are not going to throw that away. But all it means is that there is going to be a balancing of interest. So where the Egyptian interest and the Chinese interest converge, they continue. Where the Egyptian interest and the Russian interests converge, they continue. Where American interest, and this time the American interests and the Egyptian interests do converge when it comes to the Middle East crisis.
But what's maybe slightly concerning is where these interests between the US and Israel and Egypt converge. What might that mean for Palestine?
Well, I think the Palestinians and their supporters and the leaders, they need to go to the drawing board in order to figure out how they fit in, and they are not made irrelevant. There is a likelihood that the Palestinians as a people could be seen to be irrelevant. But then it is in the interest of Egypt, as supposedly the leader of the Arab world, and the Palestinians included in that group, to ensure that it has something to say in favor of the Palestinians as they negotiate the total outcome at the end. So it may appear as if it's being relegated, but actually it might even be elevated a little higher, only different formulas for dealing with it.
Indeed, we'll have to wait and see, but thank you for that analysis, Professor Macharia Monene, live for us here in studio.